Good morning, Virgo. They are looking for you, not metaphorically, not in the vague spiritual sense of someone whose soul is seeking yours across some abstract plane of existence. In the real, physical, completely literal sense of a person who has made a decision, a specific, deliberate, this is what I am doing decision to find you, to locate where you are in the world and close the distance between that location and wherever they currently are. Now, not eventually, not when the timing is better or when they feel more prepared or when the circumstances of their life have arranged themselves into something more convenient for the kind of move they are about to make. The timing has never been better, and they have stopped waiting for it to become so. The circumstances are what they are, and they have decided the circumstances are no longer a reason to stay where they are. They are searching. And I need you to understand something about the quality of this search before we go any further. This is not the passive, algorithm assisted, what are they up to kind of search that people conduct when they are curious about someone they once knew and have a spare moment on a Tuesday afternoon. This is not digital or casual or something they will do and then close the tab on and return to their ordinary life unchanged. This is intentional movement toward you, carried by something that has been building in them for long enough that the building has finally exceeded the capacity of any container they had for it. Long enough that the question is no longer whether to find you, but only the practical question of how. Stay with me, Virgo, because the cards gave me this message with an insistence that I have rarely encountered, and I want to make sure every word of it reaches you the way it arrived for me, with force, with specificity, and with the particular urgency of something that is not theoretical or eventual, but happening right now. Let me tell you about the obsession, because that is the word in the title, and it is not a word I would use carelessly, and it is not a word the cards offered carelessly. It is the precise word for what this person has been living with. Obsession, in the way I am using it, is not pathology. It is not the dark, intrusive, unwanted kind that requires clinical intervention and creates fear rather than feeling. It is the other kind. The kind that the poets have been writing about for as long as poets have existed, because it is one of the most specifically human experiences there is. The kind where a person takes up residence in another person's mind and refuses to be evicted regardless of how many reasonable arguments are made for their departure. You are living in this person's mind, have been for longer than they would probably admit out loud, have been through all the ordinary days that should have, by conventional logic, produced enough distance between the original impression of you and the present moment to dilute what they feel into something more manageable. Through the weeks and the months of their ordinary life being lived in ordinary ways that should have, at some point, filled enough of their awareness to crowd you out, they did not crowd you out. You remained, not as a fading impression or a warm memory that visits occasionally and then returns to wherever memories go, as a presence, active, specific, detailed in the way that only real things are detailed in memory. The sound of your voice when you said a particular thing, the quality of your attention when it was directed at them, the specific way you existed in a shared space that made the shared space feel different from shared space without you in it. These things did not fade. They accumulated. They accumulated. I want to speak to the timeline of this because the duration of the carrying matters. Because understanding how long this person has been moving through the world with you living in the background of their awareness is going to change the way you understand the weight of what is approaching. This is not recent. Whatever the current visible state of things between you, however much time has passed, however much distance has been created by circumstance or choice or the natural drift that happens between people when life moves them in separate directions. The carrying predates the distance. It started before whatever created the space between you. It survived the space. It continued through every period of reduced contact, every stretch of silence, every moment when the rational argument for simply letting the whole thing go became the most available and the most sensible option. They did not take the option, not because they were not capable of making rational choices about their own emotional life, but because some things are not actually optional. Some feelings do not consult the rational faculty before taking up residence and do not respond to eviction notices, regardless of how logically they are worded. The carrying was not a choice they renewed each day. It was simply what happened, the automatic, unchosen continuation of something that had started too deeply to be stopped by the ordinary means that stop ordinary feelings. And after all that time, after all that distance, after all the days that should have been enough to produce the forgetting or the fading, or at minimum the reduction into something that could finally be filed away as finished, here they are, searching. I want to speak to the moment the decision was made, because there was a moment, a specific one, not the thousandth time they thought about you, though that thought was probably the one that finally tipped the scale, but the moment where thinking became insufficient, where the interior of carrying you in the private space of their mind stopped being enough, and the question of where you are in the actual physical world became impossible to leave unanswered. Something happened, a trigger. Not necessarily dramatic, these triggers rarely are. Something as simple as a song or a place or a quality of light at a particular time of day that carried your signature in a way they did not expect and were not defended against. Or something more concrete, a conversation that brought your name up, a moment of being asked about you, a piece of information about your life that reached them through whatever channel it reached them through and landed with a weight that forced them to acknowledge what they had been carrying. In that moment, the carrying shifted into reaching. The interior question became an exterior intention, and the intention became the search that is happening right now in the actual present of your actual life, whether or not you have any visible evidence of it yet. Um, Let me speak to what this search looks like in practice, because I feel some of you may be wondering what I mean when I say someone is searching for you, and I want to be concrete rather than abstract about what is happening. For some of you, the search is digital in its first form, someone going back through whatever platforms still hold traces of you, looking at what you have made public about where you are and what you are doing and who you are now relative to who you were when they last had direct access to knowing. Spending time in those spaces with the specific quality of attention of someone who is not casually browsing but actively building a picture, gathering information that will allow them to make a move that feels less like appearing from nowhere and more like an informed, intentional arrival. They are studying the terrain before they cross it. For others, the search is social, going through the people who connect you, finding the mutual thread, asking questions that are not directly about you, but that are designed to produce information about you. The friend they reach out to after a long silence, the conversation they initiate with someone who is close to you, framed around catching up, angled very precisely toward anything that tells them where you are and whether the door is open. They are looking for a route to you that will not feel like an ambush when it arrives at your door. And for others still, the search is about to become direct. A message being composed right now, opened and closed and reopened and reconsidered and approached from a different angle. A first line being found and discarded and found again. The specific, painstaking work of someone who understands that this contact is significant and who is refusing to send it until it says what they need it to say in a way that gives it a real chance of being received. It is almost ready. Does this feel like something you have been sensing, Virgo? That specific quality of being thought about from a distance in a way that has more intention behind it than ordinary memory. Have you had moments recently of feeling unexpectedly found, of your name coming up in conversations you were not part of, or of information about you traveling in directions you did not deliberately send it? Your instincts about being sought are more accurate than you give them credit for. Let me know in the comments. Tell me who came to mind the moment I described the search. Tell me how long you have felt the edge of this without having the full picture. Now, let me speak to what they are hoping to find when the search concludes, because the search has an object, a specific vision of what the arrival at you looks like in their best imagining of it. And that vision is important to understand because it tells you something true about where they are and what they are actually reaching for. They are not searching for the version of you they lost, or the version they imagined, or the version that fits the story they have been telling about you in the private space of their own reflection on whatever existed between you before. They are searching for the current you. This is the part that surprised me when it came through, because most searches of this nature are searches for restoration, for the return of something that was, for the reconstruction of a moment or a dynamic or a version of a connection that existed at a prior point and that the person is hoping to find intact, as though the time between then and now were a parenthesis rather than a continuation. This person is not looking for the parentheses. They are looking for who you are now, after everything, after whatever time has passed and whatever you have walked through in it, and whatever version of yourself you have become through the walking. They have understood, in whatever way they have been processing this during the period of the building, that the you of now is more interesting to them than the you of then. That whatever the intervening time has done to you, it has done in the direction of more depth, more specificity, more fully and completely yourself. They want to meet that person, the one who exists in this present, in this chapter, in the particular form that you take right now, today, having become everything you have become in the time since they last had you close. They are studying the terrain before they cross it. For others, the search is social, going through the people who connect you, finding the mutual thread, asking questions that are not directly about you, but that are designed to produce information about you. the friend they reach out to after a long silence, the conversation they initiate with someone who is close to you, framed around catching up, angled very precisely toward anything that tells them where you are and whether the door is open. They are looking for a route to you that will not feel like an ambush when it arrives at your door. And for others still, the search is about to become direct, a message being composed right now, opened and closed and reopened and reconsidered and approached from a different angle, a first line being found and discarded and found again. The specific, painstaking work of someone who understands that this contact is significant and who is refusing to send it until it says what they need it to say in a way that gives it a real chance of being received. It is almost ready. Let me speak to what happens to them when they find a trace of you in the course of this search. Because the search is not emotionally neutral. Every piece of information they encounter about you, every image, every word, every evidence that you are alive and present and existing in the world in the specific form that you currently exist in, produces something in them that the ordinary mechanics of scrolling and reading and observing do not produce. It produces confirmation, the specific, almost physical relief of confirmation, of reality matching the interior picture they have been carrying, of you being real in a way that the memory, no matter how vivid, cannot fully replicate. Because memory is a closed system, it does not update. It holds the version of you it captured and keeps it at the moment of capture, unchanging, while the real you continues to grow and develop and become something that the memory cannot know about. When they find the current you in the search, the gap between the memory and the reality closes. And the closing of that gap produces something that is halfway between relief and longing and the specific kind of ache that belongs to seeing something you want from a distance that is shorter than it used to be, but is still a distance. They are in that ache right now, moving through it toward the action that will collapse the distance entirely. I want to speak to something before we reach the close of this reading. Something about how you receive what is coming. The arrival of someone who has been searching for you carries a particular kind of energy, an intensity, the specific, concentrated quality of feeling that belongs to something that has been building for a long time before it finds its expression. An intensity, even when it is welcome, and even when some part of you has been sensing the search and has feelings of your own about the arrival, can be difficult to receive without flinching. You are allowed to take time. When this contact comes, and it is coming, with the specific certainty of something that has already moved past the point of being preventable, you do not have to respond immediately. You do not have to meet the intensity of what has been building in them with an immediate declaration of your own position. You do not have to know in the moment of receiving what they send or say exactly what you feel about it or exactly what you want to do about it. You are allowed to simply receive it first, to let it exist in your hands for a moment before you decide what to do with it, to read it more than once, to sit with the feeling it produces in you before you construct a response from that feeling. Because the person searching for you is not searching for an immediate answer. They are searching for you, the presence of you, the fact of you, the confirmation that you exist in the world in a form they can find and if you choose to allow it, be found by in return. That confirmation does not require a decision, it only requires your presence. Inhale. Let me speak to the thing underneath the search, the reason that exists beneath the reason. Because what drives someone to move from the interior of feeling toward the exterior of action is never only what it appears to be on the surface. Underneath the obsession, underneath the building, underneath the specific trigger that converted the thinking into searching is something very simple. They do not want to wonder anymore. The carrying has become heavier than the reaching feels risky. The weight of not knowing whether you think about them, whether there is anything still alive between you, whether the window that existed before is still a window or has become a wall, has finally exceeded the weight of the vulnerability required to go and find out. They would rather know, even if knowing means discovering that the answer is not what they hoped, even if finding you means finding out that the you of now has moved in a direction that does not have room for them in it. Even if the search concludes in a place that requires them to finally, definitively, with evidence, let the carrying go. They would rather know than continue not knowing. That is not obsession in the dark sense. That is courage in the very specific form that courage takes in people who have been afraid for a long time and have finally decided that the fear is costing more than the alternative. The search is courage wearing the face of need, and need wearing the face of you. As I close this reading, I want to give you something concrete to carry into the next few days. Not a strategy or a set of instructions, but an orientation. Stay findable. Not in any way that requires effort or performance or the management of your own accessibility for the benefit of someone who is looking. Simply in the way of not making yourself deliberately smaller or quieter or less visible than you naturally are in this period. Not retreating into a version of yourself that is harder to reach. Not preemptively closing any doors that are currently open, because what is searching for you is real, and what is real deserves the chance to arrive at something equally real on the other end of the search. You are that real thing. You have always been what this search is for. And in the time it takes for what is moving toward you to complete its movement, the only thing asked of you is to be exactly where you are, which is where they are looking, which is where they are going to find you. Leave me a comment below. Tell me who you felt the moment I started describing the search. Tell me if you have been sensing yourself being looked for in the particular directional way I described. Tell me what this reading opened in you. Every word you write, I read. Every story matters to me. Until next time, Virgo, someone is searching for you right now, not for who you were, for who you became. And that person, the one you are today, in this chapter, in this specific and unrepeatable version of your life, is exactly who they have been building toward finding. Let them find you.